The space station floated in the darkness like a giant metal flower. They called it the Crimson Spiral. It was a place where warriors from many worlds came to fight, to prove themselves, to win glory for their people. Today, the station was full. Thousands of aliens had come to watch a human lose. Commander Park Tae-soo stood at the entrance of the arena and looked at the crowd. He saw creatures of all shapes and sizes. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had too many eyes or too many arms. They all looked at him the same way. They looked at him like he was already dead. Tae-soo was 34 years old. He was not very tall. He was not very big. He had short black hair and a calm face that rarely showed emotion. He wore the gray uniform of the Earth Defense Corps with 3 silver stars on his shoulder. He had fought in 2 wars and won many battles. But here in this place, none of that mattered. Here, he was just a human, and humans were weak. "You should not have come," said a voice behind him. Tae-soo turned. His second officer, Lieutenant Nayuri, stood there with worry on her face. She was young, only 26, but she was smart and brave. She had tried to stop him from accepting this challenge. "Someone had to come," Tae-soo said. "Someone else. Anyone else. You are too important to die in an alien arena." Tae-soo almost smiled. "If I don't fight, we lose the Naran corridor. 50 million humans live in those systems. I will not let them become homeless because I was afraid." Yuri opened her mouth to argue more, but the sound of drums stopped her. Deep, heavy drums that made the floor shake. The crowd began to cheer. The fight was about to begin. Tae-soo walked forward into the arena. It was a huge circular space with a floor of black stone. Above him, thousands of aliens sat in rising rows of seats, screaming and stomping their feet. Giant screens floated in the air, showing his face to everyone. He looked small. He looked alone. Then the crowd's cheering changed. It became louder, wilder, full of love and worship. Tae-soo looked across the arena and saw why. She was magnificent. Lady Yura of House Kale walked out of the opposite entrance like a goddess of war. She was 7 feet tall, maybe more. Her skin was smooth and violet like the color of a late sunset. She had 4 arms, each one thick with muscle. Her eyes were the color of burning copper, and they looked at Tae-soo like he was an insect. She wore armor made of golden metal that covered her chest and shoulders. Her black hair was long and tied back in a warrior's knot. When she moved like water, like smoke, like something that could kill you before you knew it was there. Tae-soo had read her file. 147 fights, 147 victories. She had never lost. She had never even come close to losing. She was the greatest warrior the Valanthi Empire had ever produced. Yura walked to the center of the arena and stopped. Tae-soo walked to meet her. When he stood before her, he had to look up. She was almost 2 feet taller than him. "So," she said. Her voice was deep and smooth. "This is what humanity sends to face me. A small man with soft skin and breakable bones." The crowd laughed. Tae-soo said nothing. Yura began to walk in a circle around him. She moved slowly, studying him like a predator studying prey. "Your species is young," she said. "You have been in space for less than 200 years. My people have ruled the stars for 10,000 years. We have conquered worlds you cannot even imagine. And you think you can stand against us?" "I don't think anything," Tae-soo said. "I just came to fight." Yura stopped in front of him. Something flickered in her copper eyes. Interest, maybe. Or just amusement. "Very well," she said. "Then let us speak the old words." She raised all 4 of her arms. The crowd fell silent. "I am Lady Yura of House Kale," she announced, her voice filling the arena. "Champion of the Valanthi Empire, undefeated in ritual combat. I challenge this human to the trial of 5. If he defeats me—" She paused, and a cold smile crossed her face. "If he defeats me, I will be in his bed tonight." This I swear, by my blood and my honor." The crowd howled with laughter. The idea was ridiculous, impossible. A human defeating their champion? It would never happen. Yura looked down at Taisu. "But when I defeat you, human, your species will give up all claim to the Naran corridor. You will leave those systems and never return. This is the price of your failure. Do you accept?" Taisu looked up at her. 50 million lives, 50 million humans who had built homes and raised children in those systems. If he lost, they would lose everything. "I accept," he said. The crowd screamed with excitement. The fight was happening. The human was going to die. An old Valanthi in ceremonial robes walked to the center of the arena. He was the judge. He raised his staff and struck the ground 3 times. "The trial of 5 will begin," he announced. 5 tests. 5 chances to prove your worth. Strength, speed, combat, mind, will. The warrior who wins 3 tests first will be the victor. He looked at Taisu with something like pity in his old eyes. "May your ancestors give you courage, human. You will need it." The judge walked away. Taisu and Yura were alone in the center of the arena. "The first test is strength," Yura said. "We will move the crystal pillars. They weigh 3,000 kilograms each. I will carry mine across the arena. You will fail to lift yours. Then we will move on to the second test, where you will also fail, and so on, until this sad display is over." Taisu looked at her. "You talk a lot." Yura's eyes widened. For a moment she looked shocked. Then she laughed. It was a real laugh, not a mocking one. "You have courage," she admitted. "Stupid courage, but courage. I will try to make your defeat quick, human, as a sign of respect. My name is Park Taisu," he said, "not human. Names are for equals." She turned and walked toward her pillar. "Prove you are my equal, and I will use your name." Taisu watched her go. Then he turned and walked toward his own pillar. It stood at the edge of the arena, a massive column of blue crystal that seemed to glow from inside. 3,000 kilograms. He could barely lift 300 on a good day. But he had not come here to lift with his muscles. He had come here to win. The drums began to beat again. The crowd began to chant Yura's name. The first test was about to begin. Taisu put his hands on the cold crystal and took a deep breath. "Okay," he whispered to himself. "Let's show them what humans can do." She grabbed her crystal pillar with all 4 arms and lifted it like it weighed nothing. The crowd roared with joy. This was their champion. This was Valanthi power. She began to walk across the arena with the massive pillar on her shoulders, each step strong and steady. Taisu watched her for a moment, then he turned to his own pillar. He placed his hands on it and pushed. Nothing happened. He pushed harder. The pillar did not move. He heard laughter from the crowd above. He heard someone shout, "Go home, human!" in broken English. He ignored them. Taisu stepped back and looked at the pillar carefully. It was made of crystal, which meant it had a structure. It had a shape. It had a center of balance. He walked around it slowly, studying it from every angle. He touched it in different places, feeling its weight distribution. The crowd grew quiet. They did not understand what he was doing. Neither did Yura, who had stopped to watch from halfway across the arena. Her pillar sat on her shoulders like a toy. Taisu found what he was looking for. The crystal was not perfectly balanced. One side was slightly heavier than the other. If he lifted from the light side and used the heavy side as a pivot point, he positioned himself carefully. He bent his knees. He placed his hands exactly where they needed to be. Then he took a deep breath and lifted. The pillar moved. It did not rise into the air like Yura's had. Instead, it tilted. The heavy end stayed on the ground while the light end rose up. Taisu moved under it quickly and got the pillar onto his shoulders. The weight was terrible. His legs screamed. His back felt like it was breaking. but the pillar was up. The crowd stopped laughing. Taesu began to walk. Each step was agony. Each step felt like it would be his last. But he kept going. He used the pillar's own momentum to help him. When it started to tip forward, he moved forward with it. When it started to tip back, he slowed down. He was not carrying the pillar. He was dancing with it. Yura had already crossed the finish line. She stood there with her arms crossed, watching him come. Her face showed no expression, but her copper eyes were focused on him with new attention. The arena was silent now. Every alien was watching the human struggle across the floor with 3,000 kilograms on his shoulders. He was slow. He was obviously in pain, but he was moving. 10 meters from the finish line, Taesu's left leg gave out. He fell to one knee. The pillar shifted dangerously on his shoulders. The crowd gasped. Some of them started cheering, thinking he was about to fail, but Taesu did not let the pillar fall. He held it there on one knee, his whole body shaking with effort. "Stay down," Yura called out to him. "There is no shame in it. You have already done more than any human should be able to do." Taesu looked up at her. Sweat poured down his face. Blood ran from his nose where small vessels had burst from the pressure. He looked like a man who was about to die. He smiled. "Not yet," he said. He pushed himself up. He did not know how. He did not know where the strength came from. But he stood up and he started walking again. 5 meters, 3 meters, 1 meter. He crossed the finish line and let the pillar fall. The crash was enormous. The pillar shattered into 1,000 pieces. Taesu collapsed beside it, breathing so hard he thought his lungs would burst. The old judge walked over and looked down at him. "First test complete," he announced. "Lady Yura wins the test of strength." He paused and looked at Taesu with something new in his eyes. But the human finished. The record will show that he finished. The crowd did not know how to react. Their champion had won, yes, but the human had not lost the way they expected him to lose. He had not given up. He had not broken. He had finished. Yura walked over and stood above Taesu. He was still on the ground, still trying to catch his breath. "That was unexpected," she said. "I'm full of surprises," Taesu managed to say. "You used your brain instead of your muscles. Leverage, balance, momentum." She tilted her head. "Clever, but it will not help you in the next test." "What's the next test?" "Speed." A small smile crossed her face. "My people evolved as ambush predators. We can move faster than your eyes can follow. In short distances, nothing in the galaxy can outrun us." Taesu slowly pushed himself to his feet. His body hurt everywhere. He could feel bruises forming on his shoulders and back. "Then I guess I'll have to find another trick." "There are no tricks for speed, human. You are either fast or you are slow, and your species is slow." The crowd had started chanting again. They wanted the next test to begin. They wanted to see their champion destroy the human properly this time. Taesu looked at the arena. Workers were already setting up the next challenge. He could see a huge maze being constructed in the center of the floor. It was full of moving walls and glowing barriers. "A labyrinth," Yura said. "We must go from one end to the other. The first one out wins. I will be finished before you reach the middle." "We'll see." Yura's copper eyes studied him. "Why do you keep fighting? You must know you cannot win. Is it pride? Stupidity?" 50 million people, Taesu said. "What?" 50 million humans live in the Naran corridor. If I lose, they lose their homes, their lives. He met her eyes. "I am fighting for them." For a moment, something changed in Yura's face. The arrogance faded. She looked at him like she was seeing him for the first time. "That is..." She stopped. "That is a good reason to fight. It's the only reason that matters." Yura was quiet for a moment. Then the hardness returned to her face. "It will not save you. No reason, however noble, can make a slow creature fast. You will lose this test, Park Tae-soo. Tae-soo noticed that she had used his name. Maybe, he said, but I will not lose quietly. The horn sounded again. The maze was ready. They walked toward it together, the alien champion and the human commander. The crowd screamed with excitement. Yura took her place at one entrance of the maze. Tae-soo took his place at another. They could not see each other now. They could only see the twisting corridors ahead of them, full of moving obstacles and danger. When the horn sounds, we run, Yura's voice echoed through the maze. Try to keep up, human. Tae-soo did not answer. He was thinking. He was remembering something he had learned long ago about how humans used to hunt. They did not chase their prey in short bursts like predators. They followed their prey for hours, for days, never stopping, never resting, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. Humans were not built for speed. They were built for something else. The horn sounded. Tae-soo started to run. Her forearms grabbed walls and poles, throwing her forward with impossible speed. She jumped over barriers. She slid under closing doors. She bounced off walls and flew through the air like she had been born for this. In the first 30 seconds, she covered more distance than most species could cover in 5 minutes. The crowd went insane. This was what they had come to see. This was Valanthe power at its finest. The screens showed Tae-soo at the same time. He was jogging. Not running, not sprinting, jogging. The crowd laughed so hard that some of them nearly fell out of their seats. "The human is already giving up," someone shouted. "He knows he cannot win. This is the best humanity has? Pathetic." But Lieutenant Yuri, watching from the human viewing box, did not laugh. She leaned forward, her eyes focused on her commander. She knew him. She knew he never did anything without a reason. "What are you doing?" she whispered. In the maze, Tae-soo ran at his steady pace. The obstacles came at him and he dodged them carefully, never wasting energy, never moving faster than he needed to. His breathing was controlled. His heart rate was controlled. Everything was controlled. Yura reached the middle of the maze in 2 minutes. She was barely breathing hard. She looked at the screen that showed Tae-soo's position and laughed. He was not even a quarter of the way through. "Poor creature," she said. "Let me finish this." She turned and ran into the second half of the maze. This part was harder. The obstacles moved faster. The barriers appeared with less warning. The corridors twisted in confusing patterns. But Yura was still the fastest thing in the arena. She tore through the challenges like they were nothing. Then, at minute 4, she had to stop. Her muscles burned. Her lungs felt like they were on fire. She leaned against a wall and tried to catch her breath. This was normal. This was how her species worked. They were built for short, explosive bursts of speed. After each burst, they needed time to recover. She would rest for 30 seconds, maybe 40. Then she would finish the maze. On the screen, she saw Tae-soo reach the middle of the maze. He was still jogging. Yura frowned. Why was he not tired? He had been running for 4 minutes straight. Any reasonable creature would have slowed down by now. Any reasonable creature would have stopped to rest. Tae-soo did not stop. He did not even slow down. Yura pushed off from the wall and started running again. Her legs protested. Her muscles screamed. But she was still faster than the human. She could still win this. At minute 6, she had to stop again. This time, it took her longer to recover. Her whole body was shaking. She had pushed too hard in the first half. She had used too much energy. Now she was paying for it. She looked at the screen. Tae-soo was 3/4 of the way through the maze, still jogging, still breathing steadily, still moving forward with that same calm, relentless pace. "What is he?" Yura whispered. She forced herself to run again. Every step hurt. Every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. But she could see the exit now. It was close. She just had to reach it before the human. She burst out of the maze and crossed the finish line. For a moment, she felt relief. She had won. The test was hers. Then she looked at the time. 7 minutes and 34 seconds. She turned and watched the screen. Tae-Soo was in the final corridor. He was running a little faster now. Not much faster, but enough. His face was covered in sweat. His legs must have been hurting. But he did not stop. The crowd was silent. They watched the human with a strange new feeling. It was not respect, not yet. But it was not contempt either. It was something in between. It was uncertainty. Tae-Soo emerged from the maze and crossed the finish line. 7 minutes and 52 seconds. He had lost by 18 seconds. But he had not stopped. Lieutenant Yuri was on her feet, tears in her eyes. She understood now. She understood what her commander had done. The crowd began to murmur. They had seen many races compete in the maze. Fast races, slow races, races that were known for their speed, and races that were known for their endurance. But they had never seen anything like this. They had never seen a creature run for 7 minutes straight without stopping, without slowing down, without any sign of giving up. Yura stood at the finish line, her hands on her knees, still trying to recover. When Tae-Soo walked over to her, she looked up at him with new eyes. "How?" she asked. "How did you do that? No creature can run for that long without rest." "Humans can," Tae-Soo said. He was breathing hard, but he was already recovering. "We evolved as persistence hunters. We used to chase our prey across entire continents, not with speed, with endurance. We would run and run and run until our prey collapsed from exhaustion." "Persistence hunters," Yura repeated. The concept seemed to disturb her. "You just keep going? You never stop?" "We stop when we catch what we are chasing, or when we die." Yura stared at him. For the first time since the competition began, she looked uncertain. She had expected to win this test easily. She had won, yes, but not easily. Not easily at all. "The score is 2 tests to 0, she said. "I only need to win one more to claim victory." "Then you better win the next one," Tae-Soo said, "because I'm not getting tired." The old judge walked over. "Second test complete. Lady Yura wins the test of speed." He looked at Tae-Soo with open surprise. "But the human finished only 18 seconds behind. This is the closest any challenger has come to Lady Yura in this test. The record will be noted." The crowd did not cheer this time. They did not laugh. They just watched as Tae-Soo and Yura walked to the center of the arena for the third test. "Combat," Yura said. "We will fight with energy staves. This is where I will end this competition." "You've ended a lot of competitions in this test." 112 of my victories came in the combat test. I have trained with the staff since I was a child. My people have practiced this art for 10,000 years. She looked at him seriously. "You cannot beat me in combat, Tae-Soo. No amount of cleverness or endurance will help you here." "I am simply better than you." Tae-Soo nodded. "Probably. But I've learned something from these first 2 tests." "What?" "You expect your opponents to fight the way you fight. Strength against strength, speed against speed." He took the energy staff that a worker handed to him. "I don't think anyone has ever fought you a different way." Yura's eyes narrowed. "What way would you fight?" Tae-Soo smiled. "Let's find out." The drums began to beat again. The crowd leaned forward in their seats. This was the test they had really been waiting for. This was combat. This was blood. Yura took her fighting stance. She held her staff in 2 hands and let her other 2 hands hang free, ready to grab or strike. She looked like a statue of a war goddess. Tae-Soo took his stance. 1 staff, 2 hands. Compared to her, he looked simple, basic, unfinished. The horn sounded. Yura attacked. Taesu ducked just in time. The energy staff passed so close to his face that he felt the heat on his skin. Before he could recover, Yura's second strike came at his ribs. He blocked it with his own staff, but the force of the blow sent him sliding backward across the floor. Her third strike came at his legs, her fourth at his chest, her fifth at his head again. Each attack was faster than the last. Each attack came from a different angle. With 4 arms, she could strike from directions that should have been impossible. Taesu blocked what he could. He dodged what he could not block. But in the first minute, she hit him 7 times. His ribs cracked. His lips split open. Blood ran down his chin and dripped onto the floor. The crowd cheered with every hit. This was what they wanted. This was the human being destroyed. Lieutenant Yuri could not watch. She turned away, her hands shaking. But Taesu did not fall. Every time Yura hit him, he stepped back and recovered. Every time she thought she had finished him, he raised his staff and kept fighting. His face showed pain, yes, but it also showed something else. Focus, concentration. He was watching her like a scientist watches an experiment. "Why don't you fall?" Yura demanded. She hit him in the shoulder. She heard the bone crack. "Fall!" Taesu stumbled but kept his feet. "Not yet! You cannot win this! You cannot even hurt me!" "Not yet," he said again. Yura attacked with renewed fury. Her strikes came even faster now, a storm of violence that no creature should have been able to survive. Taesu's blocking became desperate. He was barely keeping her staff away from his vital organs. Blood now ran from his nose, his mouth, his ears. His left eye was swelling shut, but he kept watching her. Even through the pain, even through the blood, his one good eye never stopped studying her movements. Humans, he remembered reading once, had the best pattern recognition of any known species. Their brains were built to find order in chaos. It was how they had survived on their dangerous home planet. It was how they had learned to predict the movements of predators, the patterns of weather, the behavior of prey. Yura's fighting style was beautiful. It was complex. It was the result of 10,000 years of development. But it was still a pattern. At minute 3, Taesu began to see it. Each of Yura's arms had a role. The upper right attacked. The upper left defended. The lower 2 provided balance and grabbed for opportunities. When she used all 4 arms together, there was a sequence. Upper right, upper left, lower right, lower left. Then a reset, a tiny pause, while her brain coordinated the next combination. The pause was small, less than a second, but it was there. At minute 4, he began to predict her strikes. Yura threw her upper right arm at his face. Taesu was already moving, sliding to the side where her upper left would not be able to block. Her lower right grabbed for him, but he was not there. He was behind her now, and he swung his staff at her back. She spun and blocked, but her eyes were wide. He had almost hit her. For the first time in 147 fights, someone had almost hit her. "How?" she breathed. Taesu smiled through bloody teeth. "I told you. I fight different." Yura attacked again, but now she was careful. Now she was worried. This human had found something in her technique that no one else had ever found. He was reading her like a book, but reading was not enough. He still had to be fast enough to act on what he read. And he was hurt, badly hurt. His left arm was almost useless now. His ribs screamed with every breath. He was slower than he had been at the start. Yura adjusted her strategy. She came at him with combinations he had not seen before. She mixed up her patterns, tried to confuse him. But every new pattern was still a pattern. And Taesu's brain kept working, kept analyzing, kept finding the gaps. At minute 5, he hit her. It was not a hard hit. His staff touched her side with barely any force, but it touched her. The crowd gasped. The screen showed the replay over and over. Lady Yura had been hit. Yura looked down at her side like she could not believe it. Then she looked at Taesu with something new in her copper eyes, something that might have been respect. "First blood," she said softly. "There'll be more," Taesu promised. And there was. Over the next 2 minutes, Taesu hit her 5 more times. Each hit was small. Each hit did little damage, but each hit proved that he could see through her defense. Each hit proved that he understood her fighting style better than anyone ever had. But he was falling apart. His body could not take much more punishment. Blood loss was making him dizzy. His reactions were getting slower. Yura landed 10 hits for every one of his. He was winning the battle of knowledge, but he was losing the battle of damage. At minute 7, Yura stepped back and looked at him. They were both breathing hard. They were both covered in blood, though most of it was his. "You are remarkable," she said. "No one has ever read my patterns before. No one has ever made me work this hard." "High praise," Taesu managed to say. "But you are broken. Look at yourself. You can barely stand. One more good hit will finish you." Taesu knew she was right. He could feel his body failing. His vision was blurry. His legs were shaking. He had maybe one good move left in him, maybe not even that. "Then I guess I better make this one count," he said. Yura raised her staff. "Come then, Park Taesu. Show me what humanity can do." Taesu gripped his staff with his one good hand. He thought about the 50 million people counting on him. He thought about his crew, watching and hoping. He thought about what it meant to be human, to never give up, to keep fighting even when the fight was lost. Yura attacked. Her final combination was her best, all 4 arms moving in perfect harmony, a killing pattern that had ended 100 fights before. But Taesu had been watching. He had seen this pattern building since the beginning. He knew what was coming. Upper right, upper left, lower right, lower left. And then the pause. The tiny pause while her brain reset. He waited for the pause. When it came, he moved. He did not have the strength for a powerful strike. He did not have the speed to hit her anywhere vital. But he did not need power or speed. He just needed to find the opening. His staff slipped past her 4 arms like it was meant to be there. It touched her throat right where her armor ended. If this had been a real fight, she would be dead. The horn sounded. The match was over. The old judge walked out. His voice shook when he spoke. "The combat test is won by the human challenger." The crowd was completely silent. They could not understand what they had just seen. Their champion had dominated the fight. Their champion had landed 100 blows to the human's 6. But the human had found the killing stroke. The human had won. Yura stood perfectly still. The staff was still touching her throat. She looked down at Taesu with her copper eyes, and for a long moment, no one moved. Then she smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "Remarkable," she said again. "Truly remarkable." She lowered her arms and stepped back. The crowd began to murmur, trying to process what had happened. Their undefeated champion had lost a test to a human. Taesu let his staff fall to the ground. Then he fell too. He landed on his knees, then on his side. The world was spinning around him. He could not feel his body anymore. The last thing he saw before he passed out was Yura standing over him. "Rest now, Park Taesu," she said softly. "You have earned it. The next test will come soon, and I will not underestimate you again." Then darkness took him. The walls were white. The air smelled like disinfectant. He tried to move, and pain shot through his entire body. He gasped and fell back onto the bed. "Easy, Commander." Lieutenant Yuri was sitting beside him. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "How long?" Taesu asked. His voice was rough. 3 hours. The Volanthi medical team worked on you. They said..." She stopped and took a breath. "They said any other human would have died from those injuries. You had 4 broken ribs, a fractured shoulder, internal bleeding, and a severe concussion. But I'm not dead. No, you're not dead. She laughed a little, but it sounded like crying. You're insane, but you're not dead. Tae-Soo looked at the ceiling. What's the score? 2-1. Lady Yura leads. If she wins the next test, it's over. What's the next test? Mind? It's a strategic simulation. You'll command a virtual fleet against hers. Tae-Soo closed his eyes. Strategic simulation. That was good. That was very good. He could fight a strategic battle. He could win a strategic battle. Help me up, he said. Commander, you need to rest. My body will rest when this is over. Help me up. Yuri looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded and helped him stand. Every movement hurt. Every breath hurt. But he was standing. A Valanthi doctor came in. She looked at Tae-Soo with something like wonder. You should not be awake. You should not be standing. How are you doing this? Humans are stubborn, Tae-Soo said. Stubborn does not cover this. You are operating on will alone. Your body has nothing left. Then will has to be enough. He walked out of the medical room. Every step was a battle, but he kept walking. The arena was waiting for him. The crowd was waiting for him. And Yura was waiting for him. When he walked out onto the floor, the crowd did something unexpected. They cheered. Not all of them. Some still shouted insults and called for his defeat, but many of them cheered. They had watched him fight their champion to a standstill. They had watched him refuse to break. They were beginning to understand that this human was something special. Yura stood in the center of the arena. She looked at him with those copper eyes that now held something other than contempt. You should not be standing, she said. I get that a lot. This test is mental, not physical, but you will still need to think clearly. Can you think clearly? I can think clearly enough to beat you. Yura smiled. It was a small smile, but it was there. We shall see. The test was set up in the middle of the arena. 2 chairs sat facing a huge holographic display. Each chair had controls for commanding a virtual fleet. The display showed a star system with planets, moons, asteroids, and empty space. 2 fleets floated on opposite sides of the system. One was blue. One was red. You will command the blue fleet, the judge explained. Lady Yura will command the red fleet. The goal is to destroy the enemy flagship. All other ships are expendable. You have equal numbers and equal firepower. The battle will be won by superior strategy. Tae-Soo sat in his chair. The controls were simple enough. Move ships here, attack there, defend this position. He had commanded real fleets in real battles. This was just a simulation. But Yura had also commanded real fleets. And her people had been fighting wars in space for 10,000 years. Begin, the judge said. Yura attacked immediately. Her fleet surged forward in a massive wave, all ships moving together, all weapons firing. It was a show of overwhelming force, meant to crush the enemy quickly and totally. This was how the Valanthi fought. They believed in strength. They believed in dominance. They believed in victory through superior power. Tae-Soo did not move his fleet forward. He pulled it back. The crowd murmured. What was the human doing? Why was he retreating? Retreat was weakness. Retreat was cowardice. But Tae-Soo knew something about war that the Valanthi did not. War was not about strength. War was about making your enemy fight on your terms. He pulled his fleet back to a cluster of asteroids. The asteroids provided cover and limited the angles of attack. Yura's massive wave could not hit him from all directions anymore. She had to come in through narrow channels, where his ships could focus their fire. Yura pushed into the asteroid field. Her ships took damage as they came through the channels. Tae-Soo's ships fell back, drawing her deeper and deeper into the rocks. She lost 10 ships, 20, 50. But she was still winning. Her fleet was still larger. Her flagship was still untouched. "Clever," Yura said. Her fingers moved over her controls. "But you cannot hide forever. I will dig you out of those rocks and finish this." She sent her heavy ships into the field to clear a path. They were slow but powerful, able to smash through the asteroids like they were nothing. Taisu's fleet retreated again, staying just ahead of the destruction. Then Taisu did something strange. He split his fleet. Half of his ships continued to retreat through the asteroid field. The other half disappeared from the battle entirely. They went dark and drifted away, hiding among the rocks like sleeping sharks. Yura did not notice. She was focused on the ships in front of her. She was focused on the chase. Her blood was up. She wanted to catch the human fleet and destroy it. She pushed deeper into the field. Her fleet spread out as it moved through the narrow channels. Her ships lost formation. They could not support each other anymore. That was when Taisu's hidden ships woke up. They came out of the asteroids like ghosts. They hit Yura's spread-out fleet from above and below and behind. They targeted the ships that were alone, that had no support. They killed them one by one, then disappeared back into the rocks before reinforcements could arrive. Yura tried to pull her fleet back together, but Taisu would not let her. Every time she formed up, he attacked from a different direction. Every time she chased one group of his ships, another group hit her from behind. He was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The Valanthi fought war like a hammer. Taisu fought war like a knife. At minute 20, Yura's fleet was cut in half. At minute 30, she had only a handful of ships left. Her flagship was surrounded by Taisu's forces with nowhere to run. "Surrender," Taisu said. Yura stared at the holographic display. Her hands were frozen over her controls. She could not believe what she was seeing. She had started with an equal fleet. She had attacked with full force. And she had been taken apart piece by a creature who should not have been able to stand up, let alone think. "How?" she asked. "How did you do this?" "Sun Tzu," Taisu said, "an ancient human general. He wrote that the supreme art of war is to defeat the enemy without fighting. I didn't beat your fleet with strength. I beat it with position. I made you fight where I wanted you to fight. I made you chase when I wanted you to chase. I controlled the battle. You just reacted to it." Yura was quiet for a long time. The crowd was silent, too. They did not understand what had happened. Their champion had attacked with everything she had, and she had lost. Finally, Yura smiled. It was not a happy smile, but it was not an angry one either. It was the smile of someone who has learned something valuable. "Sun Tzu," she repeated. "I will remember that name." She pressed a button on her controls. Her flagship exploded. "The test of mind is won by the human challenger," the judge announced. His voice was shaking. "The score is now 2-2. The final test will decide the competition." The crowd erupted, not in anger, not in joy, in pure, shocked disbelief. The human had tied the score. The human was still alive. Taisu sat back in his chair and let out a long breath. His whole body was screaming at him. His vision was blurring again. He had maybe one more fight left in him, maybe not even that. But the score was tied, and the final test was coming. It was the most sacred test in Valanthi culture. For 10,000 years, their warriors had used it to prove their worth. The rules were simple. Both fighters would be connected to machines that sent pain into their bodies. The pain would increase every minute. The first one to surrender would lose. No weapons, no strategy, no clever tricks. Just two souls fighting to see which one would break first. Yura stood beside the machines and watched Taisu walk toward her. He was moving slowly. His injuries had been treated, but he was still badly hurt. She could see it in the way he carried himself. He was a man running on empty. "You can stop this," she said quietly so only he could hear. "You have proven yourself. No one in this arena thinks you are weak anymore. There is no shame in withdrawing." "I didn't come here to prove myself," Taisu said. I came here to win. This test, Yura hesitated. This test is not like the others. The pain is real. It will feel like you are dying. My people train for this our entire lives. You have no training. You have no preparation. You will break. Maybe. Not maybe. Certainly. No creature can endure this pain without training. It is impossible. Tae-Soo looked at her. His face was calm. His eyes were steady. Have you ever heard the human word sisu? No. It's from a cold country on Earth called Finland. It means, it's hard to translate. Courage, endurance, determination. The will to keep going when there's nothing left. The will to endure beyond what's possible. A word for stubbornness. More than that, it's the belief that humans have a fire inside them that cannot be put out. No matter how much pain they face. No matter how impossible the situation seems. The fire keeps burning. Yura looked at him for a long moment. Pretty words, but words do not stop pain. No, Tae-Soo agreed. They don't, but maybe they help you remember why you're fighting. The judge called them to the machines. They were simple chairs with metal contacts on the arms and back. When the test began, the contacts would send electrical signals into their nervous systems. The signals would tell their bodies they were in pain, burning, freezing, being torn apart. The pain would feel completely real. Tae-Soo sat in his chair. The contacts pressed against his skin. He thought about the 50 million people in the Naran corridor. He thought about his crew, watching and hoping. He thought about what it meant to be human. The trial of ending will now begin, the judge announced. The pain will increase every minute. The first to surrender will lose. May your spirits be strong. He pressed a button. The pain began. It started small. A burning feeling in Tae-Soo's fingers and toes. Unpleasant, but bearable. He saw Yura sitting straight in her chair, her face showing nothing. This was easy for her. This was warm-up. 1 minute passed. The pain increased. Now it felt like his hands were on fire. His feet, too. The burning spread up his arms and legs, eating into his muscles. He gritted his teeth and kept his face still. He could do this. He could handle this. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4. The pain became terrible. It felt like his whole body was being cooked from the inside. His nerves were screaming. His muscles were cramping. Sweat poured down his face and soaked through his clothes. He wanted to scream. He wanted to beg for it to stop. He looked at Yura. She was still sitting straight. Her hands were tight on the arms of her chair, but her face was calm. She had trained for this her entire life. She knew how to manage the pain, how to compartmentalize it, how to push it to the side and keep functioning. Tae-Soo had no training. He had no techniques. He just had will. 5 minutes. 6 minutes. The pain became something beyond words. It felt like his body was being torn apart, cell by cell. It felt like every nerve was being ripped out and set on fire. He could not think anymore. He could not see. There was only pain, a universe of pain, an ocean of pain that was drowning him. He heard a voice in his mind. It sounded like his own voice, but weaker, afraid. Stop. Surrender. Make it end. You tried your best. No one can ask for more. Just stop. He thought about raising his hand. He thought about saying the word that would end this torture. Then he thought about his crew. He thought about Lieutenant Yuri, who had believed in him even when no one else did. He thought about the 50 million humans who would lose their homes if he gave up. He thought about what it meant to be human. We don't break. He lowered his hand. 8 minutes. 9 minutes. Tae-Soo was crying now. Tears ran down his face and mixed with the sweat. The pain was beyond anything he had ever imagined, beyond anything he had thought possible. His body was telling him he was dying. His mind was telling him to stop. But deep inside, in a place the pain could not reach, there was a fire. A small, stubborn fire that refused to go out. He looked at Yura. She was struggling now, too. Her face was tight with pain. Her 4 hands were gripping the chair so hard that the metal was bending. She was strong, stronger than anyone he had ever faced. But she was not unbreakable. No one was unbreakable. 10 minutes, 11 minutes. The crowd was silent. They had never seen a trial last this long. They had never seen 2 warriors endure this much pain. They were watching something historic, something that would be remembered for generations. 12 minutes. Yura screamed. It was a short scream, quickly cut off. But it was there. For the first time, she had shown weakness. Taesu heard it through the haze of his own agony. He looked at her with his one working eye. She was bent forward in her chair now, her whole body shaking. She was at her limit. She was close to breaking. But so was he. Closer, maybe. His vision was going dark. His heart was beating too fast. His body was shutting down. Just a little more, he told himself. Just a little more. He focused on Yura's face. He looked at her pain and he recognized it. It was the same pain he was feeling. They were equals in this. They were both being destroyed by the same fire. And suddenly, he felt something strange. He felt respect. Not for himself, for her. She was fighting just as hard as he was. She was refusing to break just as hard as he was. They were enemies, but they were also the same. He smiled at her. It was a small smile, tight with pain. But it was real. It said, "I see you. I respect you. Whatever happens, I'm glad I got to fight you." Yura saw the smile. Her copper eyes widened. For a moment, the pain on her face faded. She looked at him with something like wonder, and then she smiled back. 13 minutes, 14 minutes, 15 minutes. The pain was everything. The world was gone. There was nothing left but 2 souls burning in the dark. And then, finally, one of them raised their hand. Yura, Lady of House Kale, undefeated champion of the Valanthi Empire, raised her hand and spoke the word that ended the trial. Surrender. The machines stopped. The pain vanished. Silence filled the arena. Taesu slumped in his chair. He could not move. He could barely breathe. But he was conscious. He was alive. He had won. The crowd did not know how to react. For a long moment, thousands of aliens just stared at the 2 fighters. Their champion had surrendered. A human had won the trial of 5. It was impossible. It was unthinkable. Then, slowly, something began to happen. One alien stood up and started to clap. Then another. Then another. The clapping spread through the arena like a wave. Soon, half the crowd was on their feet, applauding the human who had done the impossible. Not all of them, of course. Some sat in angry silence. Some shouted protests. But many of them, more than anyone expected, recognized what they had seen. They had seen a warrior refuse to break. They had seen a soul that would not surrender. The judge walked to the center of the arena. His voice was shaking when he spoke. The trial of 5 is complete. The winner is Park Taesu of Earth. Humanity keeps its claim to the Naran corridor. Lieutenant Yuri ran onto the floor. She was crying and laughing at the same time. She reached Taesu's chair and threw her arms around him. "You did it," she said. "You actually did it." "We did it," he whispered. "We all did." On the other side of the arena, Yura stood up from her chair. She was weak and shaking, but she was standing. She walked toward Taesu with slow, careful steps. The crowd fell silent again, watching. She stopped in front of him. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. 2 warriors who had given everything they had. 2 souls who had burned in the same fire. Then Yura did something that shocked everyone. She bowed. It was a deep bow, the kind Valanthi warriors gave only to those they considered true equals. Her forehead touched the ground. Her 4 arms spread wide in a gesture of total respect. "You have defeated me fairly," she said. In the eyes of my people and my gods, you are a true warrior. I am honored to have faced you." Taesu tried to stand. His body screamed at him. Lieutenant Yuri helped him up. He stood before Yura and bowed back as deeply as he could. "I'm honored to have faced you too," he said. "You're the strongest enemy I've ever fought. And I hope we can be more than enemies." Yura raised her head. Her copper eyes studied him. "The terms of the challenge stand. You won. I will be in your bed tonight." Taesu shook his head. "I didn't fight for that. I fought for my people, for their right to keep their homes." He paused. "You don't owe me anything." Something changed in Yura's face. The formal mask of the warrior faded. Something softer appeared. Something real. "I know," she said quietly. "That is why I want to come." The crowd gasped. The humans gasped. Even Lieutenant Yuri gasped. "I have been champion for 20 years, Yura continued. "In that time I have faced 147 warriors. Not one of them was my equal. I have been alone at the top, unchallenged, incomplete." She stepped closer to Taesu. "You are the first to match me, the first to push me to my limit, the first to make me feel like I am not alone." Taesu looked at her. He saw the loneliness behind her strength. He saw the hunger for connection that her warrior culture had never allowed her to satisfy. "I understand," he said softly. The medical team arrived and insisted on taking Taesu away for treatment. But before he left, Yura touched his arm. "Tonight," she said, "we will talk." "Okay," he agreed. "We'll talk." 8 hours later, the door to Taesu's quarters chimed. He was out of bed now, moving slowly but moving. The Volanthi doctors had done good work. He would need weeks to fully recover, but he was functional. He opened the door. Yura stood there. She was not in armor anymore. She wore simple silks in the Volanthi style, a long robe of deep purple that matched her skin. Her black hair was down, flowing over her shoulders. She looked softer now, still powerful but softer. She carried a bottle of something that glowed faintly. "May I come in?" she asked. Taesu stepped aside. "Please." She walked past him and looked around the human quarters. They were simple, functional, a bed, a desk, some screens on the walls. "Your people do not believe in decoration," she observed. "We believe in efficiency." "Ah, that explains much." She held up the bottle. "This is Volani wine. It is very old and very precious. I have been saving it for a worthy occasion." "And this is worthy? The first defeat of my career? Yes. I think this qualifies." Taesu smiled. He found 2 glasses and Yura poured the wine. It smelled like flowers and honey, with something darker underneath. They sat facing each other. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was the silence of 2 people who had nothing to prove to each other anymore. "My people will be angry," Yura said finally. "They will call me weak. They will say I have shamed my house." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. They are wrong. I lost to a true warrior. There is no shame in that." She sipped her wine. "Besides, they will get over it, especially when they understand what your victory means." "What does it mean?" Yura set down her glass. Her copper eyes were serious now. "There are threats coming. Threats beyond the borders of known space. Old machines that are waking up in the dark. Horrors that will require many species to defeat." Taesu felt a chill. "What kind of threats?" "I cannot say more now. But you will learn. Everyone will learn." She leaned forward. "My people are proud. They would never ally with those they consider weak. They would never fight beside species they do not respect. And now? Now they have seen a human stand against their champion and refuse to break. Now they have seen what your species can do." A small smile crossed her face. "Now, perhaps, an alliance is possible." Taesu understood. His victory was not just about keeping the Naran corridor. It was about opening a door between two peoples who might need each other very badly in the days to come. "Then let's talk about what comes next," he said. They talked for hours, about war and peace, about the differences between their peoples and the things they shared, about the threats waiting in the darkness and how they might be faced together. And as they talked, something grew between them. Not love, not yet, but understanding, respect. The beginning of something that might become more. When dawn broke over the distant star, Yura was still there. She had moved to sit beside him on the small human couch. Her shoulder touched his. Her hand rested near his hand. "This is unexpected," she said softly. "What is?" "This. Talking. Being understood." She looked at him. "I came here as a prize to be claimed. I stayed as something else. What are you now?" She thought about it. "An equal. A partner, perhaps, if you want one." Tae-Soo looked at her. 24 hours ago, she had been his enemy. She had tried to destroy him, and she had nearly succeeded. But somewhere in the fire of battle, something had changed. They had seen each other truly. They had recognized something in each other that they had never found anywhere else. "I want one," he said. Yura smiled. It was a real smile, warm and full. It transformed her face completely. "Then you have one," she said. 6 months later, the Treaty of the Crimson Spiral was signed. It was the first formal alliance between Earth and the Valanthi Empire. Human persistence and Valanthi strength became legendary in the battles that followed. The threats that Yura had spoken of came, and they were met by two species fighting side by side. Commander Park Tae-Soo became admiral of the combined fleet. Lady Yura of House Kale fought beside him in 12 campaigns. The galaxy learned to fear them, together. And in the histories of both peoples, they remembered the night it began. When a human commander faced an alien champion, refused to break, and won not just a contest, but the respect of a warrior race, and perhaps something more.